What if a child was hated not because he did wrong, but because his destiny was too loud? What if the people meant to protect him became the architects of his suffering? And what if destiny, long silent, finally stood up to speak? This is not just a story. It is a warning. It is a mirror. And it is an African folktale carried by time. Listen. Long before the world learned impatience, when stories were not written but remembered, when the earth still listened to footsteps and the wind carried the voices of ancestors, there lay a fertile valley called Ilariamokan. Ilariamokan was not the largest land, but it was among the most respected. Rivers curved through it like silver bracelets, forests stood like ancient guardians, and the soil yielded generously to those who honored it. The elders of Ilariamokan taught their children one truth above all others. Destiny may be delayed, but it can never be denied. It was in this land that a child was born whose destiny would test their belief. The child was named Adaraimi Eolanrowaju. His father, Olamide Kinate, was the first son of the formidable matriarch Aya Ojida Ayamf. Olamide was wealthy, respected, and fair. His barns were always full, his gates always open, and his word always trusted. But Olamide carried a heart his mother could not control. He married Monarchy Ab, a woman without powerful roots, without loud relatives, without hunger for status. She spoke softly. She walked gently. She loved deeply. From the day Monarchy entered the compound, Aya Ojide felt something shift inside her, a fear she did not understand and refused to name. This woman will dilute our blood, she often said. She hides behind gentleness. When Monarchy gave birth to a son, the compound celebrated. But Aya Ojida did not. She stood over the child's cradle for a long time, her eyes narrow, her lips tight. Finally, she muttered words that no one heard clearly, except the wind. That child carries fire. She turned away. Aya Ojide's hatred did not come from nowhere. In her youth, she had once been chosen for greatness, but jealousy and pride led her to destroy her own opportunity. She watched her destiny pass to another and learned to survive through control instead of growth. Now, looking at Adaraimi, she saw something she could not bear. A future untouched by fear. She hated the child not for who he was, but for what he reminded her of. When Adaraimi was 6 reigns old, sickness entered the household. Monarchy weakened day by day. One night, when the moon sat low and red, she called her son close. Her voice was faint, but steady. "My son," she said, placing a small carved calabash into his hands. "Never forget who you are, even if others try to rename you." "What is inside?" the boy asked. "Your beginning," she replied. "And your ending." Before dawn, she joined the ancestors. Aya Ojida watched the burial in silence. No tears fell. A year later, tragedy struck again. Olamide died during a trading journey, thrown from his horse on a lonely road. When his body returned to Ilariamokan, the land mourned. Before he was buried, a trusted elder revealed Olamide's final words. "If anyone steals what belongs to my son, let them enjoy it briefly. But let their joy rot from the inside." The words were not dramatic. They were deliberate. And the earth listened. According to tradition, everything Olamide owned belonged to his only son. But tradition bends when fear and greed agree. Aya Ojida summoned the elders. "The child is too young," she said calmly. "My first son's wealth must be protected." She turned to her second son, Bamadil Olo, a man whose smile never reached his eyes. "Let Bamadil manage everything." Bamadil bowed deeply. "I live only to serve this family," he said. Later, when they were alone, Aya Ojida whispered, "Do not let that boy rise. If he does, everything I lost will laugh at me." And so, without ceremony, Adaraimi lost everything. He was moved to a small hut behind the compound. He worked while others rested. He watched while others ate. One night, trembling with hunger, he asked his grandmother, "When will I return to my father's house?" She stared at him and replied, "When the sun learns to bow." From that day, Adorami stopped asking. The chick raised among hawks must learn silence, the elders say. After being beaten for a crime he did not commit, something broke inside him. Adorami ran into the forest, into the unknown. There, he met Boba Koniken, a blind hunter. The old man touched his face and said, "You were not chased away. You were guided here." Under Boba Koniken, Adorami learned survival, healing, patience, and wisdom. He learned that anger burns the hand that holds it. Years passed. The boy disappeared. The man emerged. While Adorami grew in strength and wisdom beneath the trees, something unseen began to stir in Ilariamokan. At first, the changes were small. One of Bamedile's finest bulls fell ill without warning. Then 2 more followed. His yam barn, once overflowing, began to rot from within. Palm oil turned sour. Tools broke in his hands. Workers left without explanation. People began to whisper in the marketplace. When a man eats what is not his stomach never rests. The ground remembers the footsteps of injustice. But Bamadil laughed loudly in public, though at night he stared at his ceiling in silence. His children, once obedient, began to question him. His eldest son refused to bow to him. His daughter left his compound without blessing. Inside the house, respect dried up like the river. As for Aya Ojiida, sleep abandoned her. She began to dream of fire. In her dreams, she stood in a field of ashes. A young boy walked past her. Not as a child, but as a tall man glowing with ancestral light. She would try to call his name, but her voice would vanish. Then she would wake, sweating, shaking, clutching her chest. Fear followed her into old age like a second shadow. The curse had not shouted. It had whispered. Then came the drought. It did not arrive with thunder. It came with silence. The river that once sang through Ilariamokan shrunk into a thin brown thread. Crops cracked under the sun. Goats wandered weak and confused. Even the wind felt tired. The elders gathered. Sacrifices were made. Libations were poured. Drums were beaten. But the sky did not answer. An elder finally stood and said, "When the earth refuses water, it is not thirsty. It is offended." Silence fell over the council. Then a hunter spoke quietly. "There is a healer in the forest. They say the trees bend when he walks." The elders did not know the healer's name. But destiny did. Deep in the forest, Adorami had grown into a man of calm strength. Under the guidance of Boba Koniken, he had learned more than herbs and hunting. He had learned patience. He had learned restraint. He had learned to listen to the language of the wind. One evening, while meditating beneath an iroko tree, he heard something strange. The forest was restless. Birds flew in confused patterns. Leaves trembled though there was no wind. Even the soil beneath him felt tight. He placed his hand on the ground. And he understood. "The land of my father is crying," he whispered. Boba Konikan turned his blind eyes toward him. "A tree may leave its soil," the old hunter said softly. "But its roots never forget the way home." That night, Adorami dreamed of his mother. She did not speak. She only placed the carved calabash in his hands once more and pointed toward the village. When he awoke, he did not hesitate. "I must return," he said. The old hunter nodded. "Go. Not as a wounded child. Go as the answer." When the elders arrived in the forest searching for the healer, they did not recognize him at first. They saw only a tall young man standing calmly between shafts of golden light. But when he stepped forward, carrying the carved calabash, something ancient stirred in their memory. One elder gasped. "It is Olamide's son." Murmurs spread like fire. Adraimi did not bow his head. He bowed only slightly, out of respect, not submission. They begged him. "Save our land. The drought will destroy us." He replied calmly. "I will come. But healing the land requires healing the truth." Back in Ilariamokan, the village gathered in the square. The air was heavy. Adraimi walked to the center and placed the carved calabash on the ground. For years, no one had dared to open it. Even he had never fully understood its weight. Now, before the elders, he lifted its lid. Inside were not riches. There were symbols carved into the inner wood, the official markings of his father's lineage, proof of ownership, and a sealed parchment wrapped in dried palm fiber. The oldest elder trembled as he opened it. It bore Olamide's thumbprint. It declared clearly, "All that I own belongs to my son, Adraimi." Gasps filled the square. But the truth did not end there. Adraimi then knelt and pressed his palm against the dry earth. He began to speak words he had learned from Baba Kanikan, words of reconciliation, not revenge. He stood and turned to the elders. "The drought is not a punishment," he said. "It is a mirror. The land refuses to give because justice was taken from it." He looked at Bamadir. "Restore what was stolen." Publicly. Silence. Then one elder spoke. "The river dries when truth is buried." Bamadir's shoulders collapsed. He fell to his knees. And in that moment, before the entire village, he confessed. Adraimi instructed. The stolen lands must be returned. A public cleansing ceremony must be performed. The grandmother must ask forgiveness before the community. A day of fasting and reconciliation must be observed. Not blood. Not violence. Restoration. The ritual was performed at sunset. The next morning, clouds gathered for the first time in months. Rain did not pour violently. It fell gently. Like forgiveness. And the land breathed again. The elders turned to Adraimi. "You may take revenge. Or you may choose justice." He looked at the uncle who had beaten him. At the grandmother who had hated him. At the people who had remained silent. He remembered hunger. He remembered loneliness. He remembered the forest. Then he spoke. "Let justice speak. The hand that refuses blood is the hand destiny crowns." Bamadir was banished, not by anger, but by law. Aya Ojida lived only long enough to witness what she had tried to destroy become greater than her fear. Regret became her final companion. Adraimi rebuilt his father's legacy, but differently. Where there had been pride, he planted humility. Where there had been greed, he planted fairness. He created a place for orphan children to learn. He ensured widows were fed. He healed not just bodies, but wounds of injustice. And the people said, "The earth tested him because it intended to lift him." Moral lessons. 1. Hatred toward a child is hatred toward destiny itself. 2. Greed may win briefly, but justice always returns. 3. Patience prepares the throne that anger destroys. 4. Those who fear another's destiny often fall by their own past. 5. A child protected by destiny is never truly alone. If this story touched your spirit, remember, Africa's wisdom lives through stories. Follow African Tales of Nubia for more ancient folktales, forgotten lessons, and voices of destiny. Until next time, may the ancestors guide your path.